All right. Okay, we can start.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to introduce the third seminar on Chipre Antigo, on ancient Cyprus. We are at the first appointment for this year. I'm very happy that this became an appointment because our objective is to strengthen the area on Cyprus studies here in São Paulo, at the University of São Paulo. I'm pleased to introduce today Dr. Evangeline Markou. Thank you for your presence here. We are very happy. She speak us about a very interesting topic about royal coinages of two important archaeological sites in Cyprus. And now, before to start with your speech, Evangeline, kalosiptate, sto panepistiomas. I want to introduce with some information about her very strong and international curriculum. Evangeline Markou is a senior researcher at the Institute of Historical Research section of Greek and Roman Antiquity of the National Hellenic Research Foundation in Athens. She studied history and archaeology at the University of Thessaloniki and obtained her master and PhD degrees in ancient history and civilization from Sorbonne University Paris 4 under the supervision of Olivier Picard. She was in charge of documenting and digitalizing numismatic collections at the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge and the Numismatic Museum of Athens. Since 2008, she's a researcher at the Institute of Historical Research in Athens, while lecturing on ancient numismatics, ancient history, and the history of Cyprus at the University of Cyprus, the Open University of Cyprus, the University of the Aegean in Rhodes, and the Hellenistic Open University. She was also appointed as the 65th Eric Newman Scholar of the Numismatic Summer School in New York. Since 1997, Dr. Markou has been involved in numerous research projects both in Greece and internationally, serving as a collaborator or scientific coordinator. The project, the Silver Coinage of the Kings of Cyprus. This project saw the conception and development of the Kypros character website, which covers the history, archaeology, and numismatic of ancient Cyprus. Her research focuses on the history and numismatics of Cyprus during the Archaic and Classical periods and the early Hellenistic era. Her work has been presented at scientific conferences in Greece and internationally and has resulted in 3 monographs. Her most recent book, The Royal Coinages of Kition and Idalion, a numismatic and historical study 6th-4th century BC, published this summer within the framework of the KIT research project in the subject of this evening's presentation. Thank you again, and the virtual stage is yours.
Muito obrigado pelo convite. É uma grande alegria e uma honra estar aqui com vocês hoje. A apresentação será em inglês. Então, vou continuar em inglês.
Muito bem. Agradecemos.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I wish I could speak Portuguese. I'm sorry. I would like to start by sincerely thanking the organizers of the seminar series, Leonardo Gatti and Professor Leonardo Feduli, for their kind invitation and for the opportunity to participate in this initiative. It's really amazing to have a stage and be able to talk on Cypriot subjects related to history and archaeology abroad, and as far as the University of Sao Paulo. And thank you all very much for the invitation, and all of you for your presence in situ and online today. I will share my presentation. No, sorry. I think this is how I can do it. I hope that you can see my presentation now. Yeah. My work on the silver coinages of the kings of Cyprus started in 1998 in Paris with a master's degree, as it was just...
Excuse me, Evangeline, we are not seeing the presentation.
Oh. You're not seeing the presentation. Let me try again. Share screen out. Yeah, I have to do that again. I think now it should be fine.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, now we can see.
Great. Let me go. No. Yeah, I need, sorry, to start from the beginning. Now you can see it correctly, right?
Yes, we can see.
Perfect. And so, as mentioned before, with the Cyprus Character Research Project, it was possible for me to build a substantial coin corpus, which today numbers more than 10,500 coins, primarily silver coinages of the minted by the kings of Cyprus from the late Archaic to the early Hellenistic period, but also bronze and gold issues will be included. That covers the period of the kingdoms. So an important opportunity to publish part of this work came up in 2019 during discussions about a research project entitled KIT, which is Kition, Idalion, Tamassos, Cities and Territories in the Cypriot Kingdoms during the first millennium BC, with Sabine Fourier and Anna Canavot. And it was at that point that I proposed that part of this huge database with a complete corpus, numismatic corpus, historical analysis, and focusing on two of the Cypriot kingdoms that were part of this project, Kition and Idalion. No coins have been attributed to Tamassos. Why Kition and Idalion? The fates of Kition and Idalion were closely intertwined. Idalion was conquered by Kition in the mid-5th century and only issued coinage over a limited period of time. It is absent from the literary sources, and the succession of its kings remains almost entirely unknown, with the exception of one king mentioned in the famous Idalion tablet. Kition, though more present in the sources, is also documented only in a very fragmentary manner. Its kings also minted coins in the 5th century and continued to mint coins during the 4th century, not only in silver, but also in gold and in bronze. My objective in this project was to present the full range of numismatic evidence by assembling as complete a corpus as possible of these royal coinages of Kition and Idalion, classified by kingdom, by ruler, by denomination, and then arranged according a meticulous coin die study. The numismatic material would then be combined with the available historical, epigraphic, and archaeological testimonies, culminating in a historical commentary on the Cypriot kingdoms, including a big discussion on their monetary policies of the kings of Kition and Idalion, focusing on those two kingdoms. So this talk is actually a long presentation of the methodology and the results of my book, which was published very recently, dedicated to the royal coinages of Kition and Idalion. I would be very happy to provide you with a copy for the library of the university when you come to Athens. So please let me know so we can arrange to have one for the library of the university. So this book, which is a major deliverable of the KIT project, culminates 13 years of systematic research, documentation, and analysis of the numismatic material. It examines almost 1,800 coins issued by the kings of Kition and Idalion, and I'm deeply indebted to all the people mentioned on the left-hand side of this slide. Of course, the Department of Antiquities of Cyprus, and all the museum collectors and people in charge, the collection managers, which allowed me to propose the numismatic material of their collections in this study. A big percentage of the coins gathered comes also from private collections and from coin auctions. It is usually the case. So it is a collaborative, if you like, expertise and dedication which made this long project possible. And I'm very, very, very much in debt to all these collaborators. Special thanks are due to Stevens Bernardin, who is a French colleague working on Phoenician inscriptions, and he kindly looked with me all the coin legends, the Phoenician coin legends, and we managed also to propose, as I will present later on, a section where all these inscriptions are proposed by dies in designs I will show you in detail. So through this study, a series of historical questions concerning Cyprus and its neighboring regions during the archaic, classical, and early Hellenistic periods have been examined within the broader framework of the monetary policies of their kings. What I have tried to inquire on was the succession of the royal dynasties of Kition and Idalion, the analysis of Kition's conquest of Idalion under King Ozibal and its consequences, the monetary policies of the kings of Idalion and Kition from the late archaic through the early Hellenistic period, the silver weight standard, which is a huge question, but I think there is a solution that I'm ready to, I have proposed in the book and I'm ready to discuss with you as well. So the silver weight standard employed at Kition and Idalion and the exchange ratio between silver and gold coinages, and finally, the introduction of bronze coinage in the 4th century by the kings of Kition. So in today's presentation, I would like to guide you through the different sections of the book to explain the methodology behind this research and the reasoning behind its structure. I will then outline the main results of this study. On each slide, highlighted in yellow, are also the pages in the book from which the information or the image discussed is taken. So part A lays the foundations of the archaeological, epigraphic, and numismatic research in the book. It also serves as an introduction to historiography, the archaeological and epigraphic discoveries and their publication history, as well to the numismatic scholarship and digital resources, always relating to Idalion and Kition. This numismatic chapter and the designs you see on the right are all based on coins from the book prepared by Vangelis Kologochios, a comic artist, which I believe made a very original work. So this numismatic chapter provides a general introduction to the discipline. including a detailed explanation on the minting progress, the importance of die studies, and the methodological tools used by numismatists to establish chronology, such as hoard evidence, overstrikes, and countermarks. It also explains why die studies and statistical analysis are essential for determining weight standards and estimating mint output, which is very, very important. And for cases such as Cyprus, where we lack the mention of the island in many primary sources, in the ancient historians and in inscriptions, we find on coins a very important primary source. Allow me, and I apologize if I repeat something that is well known to many of you, to briefly recall how coin production worked in antiquity. Minting required metal flants and 2 engraved dies bearing the type's legends. The obverse die, which was fixed on the anvil, and the reverse die, which was movable and was probably struck with a hammer. Because the obverse die was stable and better protected from friction, it generally lasted about 30% longer than the reverse die before it was replaced. Since very few dies have survived, we rely on the surviving coins to actually reconstruct, through statistical methods employed in numismatics, how many dies were used for a particular coin issue. Let me give you 2 simple examples. Imagine that 1,000 coins survive from the same issuing authority and denomination. If they were struck from only 1 obverse and 2 reverse dies, for example, this would indicate a very small original issue. Experimental studies conducted by colleagues in France, such as those conducted by Thomas Fauchet and Louis Brousseau, have shown that when metal was available and dies were ready, 2 workers could provide up to 10,000 coins per day. Now let's imagine the opposite case. Only 10 coins survive, but they were struck from 3 obverse dies and 5 reverse dies. In that case, the original production must have been much larger, even if a very small number of surviving coins is now in our hands. And this is why coin die studies in the numismatic discipline are very important. The number of surviving coins does not automatically reflect the scale of the original issue. Die analysis allows us to estimate production volumes more accurately and to attribute issues more securely to the kings or cities that produce them. Of course, and I would like to underline that, we cannot really solely rely on statistics, as there are exceptional cases that we simply cannot know of, imagine, or suspect. For example, a die might break on the first strike, or a war might bring a new ruler who replaced the dice after just a few strikes. Nevertheless, statistics provide a useful basis for comparison, and it is as such that they were treated in this study, as we will see further on. The second part of the book, and I apologize for this long, I'm sorry if I repeated things that you know. The second part of the book is the most extensive one and includes the coin corpus classified by coin die studies, along with its statistics and analysis. The coin corpus comprises 1,759 coins issued by the kings of Idalion. The 161 were issued by the kings of Idalion, and by the kings of Kition, 1,598 were minted by the kings of Kition. And the great majority, almost 1,600 of these coins are in silver, and almost 200 of those are in bronze. All coins in this study are illustrated in the 88 black and white plates at full size at the end of the volume, and the 198 facsimiles, the designs of the Phoenician legends, by type and often by type combination are carefully selected, and were designed by Stevens Bernardin and are proposed also before the final plates at the end of the volume as well. You can see how this research has started. I was trying to combine the different variants, the different dies, to understand how I should classify these coins over a very long period of time. And this is the result in the book. So for each king, there is in the corpus the detailed classification with the mention. We can see on the screen, for example, the issues, the sigloi of King Balerom of Kition, and you can see the mention of the plate. You can see the corpus is in page 77. The plate is in page 562. Each number in the corpus corresponds to the same number on the plates. All coins are illustrated. The fact that all coins look like they were photographed by the same person is the meticulous work of Christos Simatos, who treated the images that were coming from collections, from scans, from auctions, from different sources. And you can see the different variants with the blue arrows, the die study, the number, and the facsimiles where these types are represented. This is how the facsimiles look like. Coin number 1112 is the facsimile 172, as you can see on the catalog. This is how the corpus works. And after the corpus, the second part of the book explains this typological analysis, classified in groups, variants, series, etc. And I tried to combine this analysis with illustrative figures. While working on this material since 2019 exclusively, using my tablet, I tried to mark the variations of the legend with colors so I could be able to identify easily the different dies. And also, I tried to understand where the Phoenician legend appeared in comparison with the antlers of the deer and the tail of the lion. The scene on the reverse of the coinages of Kition is a lion attacking a deer. And while doing that, I thought that it would be great to be able to share that in the publication for the untrained eye on coin legends and on Phoenician legends as well. And this is how we have managed to show the different legends in the book. You can see here, for example, the coin die of a siglos and of a third of a siglos of King Ozibal. And this type of zooming and designing the legend on top with color allows to see how many similarities there are in the legends. It allows to give some extra information on the paleography of these coins, which is a very, very important factor as well, also for those working on Phoenician inscriptions. And this typological analysis is followed by the metrological study, which examines the weights of the various denominations across reigns to identify the trends, to analyze production statistics for each denomination, for each king, alongside the study of the die links and the estimates of the overall coin output for the kings, which allowed to have at least 3 different coin dies combinations. Next comes the synthesis, which combines die analysis and metrology to examine trends in minting across kingdoms and kings and periods from the 5th to the 4th century. And in focuses on the 1,560 silver coins, mostly of Kition, showing the denominations from sigloi down to 96 of sigloi. And you can see in the synthesis, for example, 6 kings of Idalion that issued coins, and you can see the different denominations with a cross that are attested and the local of coins known for each one of these kings. And then we have 7 kings, kings of Kition, and an 8th section where I placed the non-attributed coins, which I will explain why and how. And then we also have bronze coins that were minted only by the last 2 kings of Kition, Milkiathon and Pumaiaton. You can see the cross. These are the 199 bronze coins in the corpus. And of course, these last 2 kings of Kition also minted gold coins. This was the subject of my PhD thesis published in 2016. But what I have proposed in this book, because I have discovered coins that appeared in auctions since 2016, they are proposed in an appendix, as we will see later on, which proposes the gold coins of the kings of Kition that appeared in auctions and other catalogs from 2009 to January 2025. The comparison section of the book also treats the same denominations minted by all the different kings in order to try and shed some light into the weight standard employed for the silver. And having a data set of 1,569 coins classified by dies is a very good data set to be able to speak and have some conclusions on the weight standard for the silver. And here on the screen, you can see the third of the sigloi minted. You can see A2, A3, A5, A6. The columns are the kings of Idalion, and then followed by the kings of Kition, the total number of coins. And together with the statistical analysis, the weight analysis of the weights follows the iconographic analysis of the main types and symbols and their parallels in the Cypriot and foreign art. In this chapter, you can see, for example, the head of Heracles on the 12th of sigloi of Balmilk, the second king of Kition. You always have into brackets the number of the coin in the coin corpus. And then on the right, you see a Cypro-archaic head from Golgi Agios Photios, now in the Louvre collection, how similar the representation of the bird is with the representation of Heracles on the coin. And it looks very, very logical that the inspiration for the coin die engravers came from sculpture. Another example can be found on this amazing statue, the terracotta, the female terracotta heads, discovered in great quantities in the Aliki region at Kition, which probably represent a female goddess with local traits. It's absolutely certain, in my opinion, that the head on the obverse of the bronze coins minted by the king of Kition, Milkiathon, tries to represent on the coins a similar sculpture and maybe a similar goddess. Part C of the book treats something very important, crucial for the numismatic studies and for the dating of these coins, which is the circulation, the overstrikes, and the countermarks. The countermarks, there's only one coin with countermarks. On the contrary, we have at least 30 hoards that include coins of Kition and Idalion that are discussed in detail in this subject, and also the modern market circulation is also addressed in this subject, highlighting the recent increase of the selling of Cypriot coins in the recent years in the coin market, and especially, as you can see, down in figure 94, there is a huge percentage of the coins of Ozibal in the last years in the coin market. In this paper of mine, where I try to every year to try and present not only the bibliography but also the Cypriot coins that were sold in the market, you can see by year how many coins. We used to find 20 and 30 Cypriot coins per year, and since 2007 we have more than 200 coins, reaching 330 coins in 2019, definitely related to the selling of a hoard. On this slide, I'm pleased to share with you how we have color-coded with Christos Simatos, the person who helped me a lot with all these images. We have color-coded the overstrikes for clarity. The undertype is shown in green, the overtype is shown in pink, and I will discuss some of the very characteristic examples in the analysis later on. But I am very happy to show you, for example, this exciting coin overstrike of Ozibal, minted on a silver siglos of King Mo of Amathus. You can see the type of the undertype down on your right, and you can see in blue on top how I have tried to design the type below the lion attacking the deer. And also another example can be seen on this overstrike of Ozibal, again, King of Kition. I have the dice, so I know that it's definitely Ozibal. He's striking the coin on top of this coin of Paphos, minted by King Stasandros around the mid-5th century. And you can see in Cypriot syllabic script, which is the local script of the island, the legend Pasi, that is of the king, abbreviation of the royal title, Satasa, behind the eagle, that is the initial of his name. This is an amazing example. You can see on the obverse of the Kitian coin, on top, Heracles, and at the bottom of his foot, the head of the eagle, actually on the at 5 hours, we would say. This is an amazing example, in my opinion. And then, of course, we also have overstrikes of King Ozibal on Athenian coins. You can see, for example, the head of Athena, how it looks, the eye, the archaic eye, it's very characteristic. But of course, it is very difficult to date these Athenian coinages and these international coinages that were found in Cyprus. But even though dating these coinages is uncertain, we know that this eye of Athena is dated in the second half of the 5th century, helping us also with Ozibal's reign, because the overstrike helps address the dating. What is very, very predominant as undertype in Cyprus during the 5th century is the Aeginetan coinages. And the coins issued by Aegina in the 5th century are two types, the sea turtle and the land tortoise. The time when the Aegina replaces the type is still under discussion amongst the researchers, but it is certain that the king of Kition, Ozibal, overstrikes coins with both turtles and tortoise. You can see, for example, here a characteristic overstrike with a sea turtle, which is the most common type we find on these coinages. And you can see that the feet of the sea turtle are parallel and almost vertical, the rear feet, while the land tortoise has the feet in a wide open position. And this is very interesting and very characteristic, because the most characteristic part on the overstrikes, which is the shell of the animal, because of the overstrike, completely disappears. So if we are lucky, we only have the feet to be able to check these overstrikes. And you can see, for example, here, a very without any doubt, overstrike of Ozypal on a land tortoise, and you can see the feet, how they are in parallel on the undertype. This is very important, and for the dating also of this change, because if a king at the far eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea in the Cypriot kingdom overstrikes both types, it means that the change happened during his reign, and that's very, 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 very important also for the dating of these coinages. We will discuss about that later on. Part D of the book is where everything comes together, because spanning on over 80 pages, it proposes to combine the synthesis of all the numismatic data that preceded until now, and integrate this numismatic data to the epigraphic, archaeological, and literary evidence, alongside, of course, the modern bibliography, to reconstruct political developments in Cyprus from the late 6th century, that's just before the revolt of the Cypriot against the Persians, as did the Ionians, up to the dissolution of Kition in 312 by Ptolemy I, primarily through the lens of the monetary policies of the kings. So the section is organized in 3 distinct periods, with many, many chapters that are related to the names of the kings and the different episodes. First, it examines the 6th and 5th centuries, establishing the foundations of the dynastic succession and the early coinage practices. Then it focuses on the kings of Kition and Idalion in the 4th century, analyzing how political and economic developments are reflected in the diminishing of silver and the introduction of the gold and bronze coinage. And third, the final section proposes a comparison between Kition and Salamis, serving as an epilogue and highlighting additional historical observations before the conclusions. The main study is complemented by 6 appendices. The first one, compiles new material, as mentioned before, from private collections and auction catalogs assembled since the publication of the 4th century gold coinage of the kings of Kition. So we have the issues of Milkiathon and Pimaiathon, the last 2 kings of Kition, of a period of 15 years between the 2 publications. The second appendix discusses the ambiguous coinage and proposes some of the coinages traditionally attributed to Kition to be completely removed from the Cypriot productions, or be considered as of a certain or non-Cypriot origin. Then the third appendix proposes the detailed study of the weight standards used for the silver coins of the kings of Kition and Idalion, based on the statistical analysis, including the silver and gold equivalencies and the introduction of the bronze. And I will present to you the detailed results in the next 20 minutes that I have at my disposal, so that you don't get very tired. And the fourth appendix has been prepared by Stevens Bernardin and it proposes a chapter on the Phoenician coin legends and some initial discussions, a preliminary paleographic study, which is very important. And from there comes this table, which is actually revealing, because you can see that the letters do not change in the 2 centuries almost at all, which means that they cannot provide any dating data, which is a very important conclusion, even at a preliminary stage. Appendix 5, I have it here as well, proposes the epigraphic testimonies of the kings of Kition and Idalion from some point onwards. And then the last appendix proposes the succession and dating of the royal dynasties of Kition and Idalion, and some proposed dates, especially for the kings of Kition, because for Idalion it's very difficult. So having gone through the different sections of the book, the methodology of the research, and the ways I have tried to culminate a very, very long research, but very exciting, to be honest, I will now turn to the principal results of this study, which counts these coins that we have seen before. And we can start by saying that silver coins were issued by both kingdoms, while bronze coins are attributed to the last kings of Kition. The corpus reveals a very marked imbalance. 161 coins from Idalion, all the kings of Idalion, 1,598 coins from Kition, with 160 coins minted by King Balmilk, the first of Kition, that's B2 on your line. So he minted 160 surviving coins. He alone equals the total output of 6 successive kings of Idalion. This disparity reflects 2 key factors. The longer duration, of course, of Kition's minting activity and the greater scale of its production. Kition's coinage spans from the late 6th century to 312 BC, whereas Idalion produced in smaller quantities, and the coinage ends in the 5th century following its conquest by Kition. Regarding the weight standard, the Cypriot siglos, with a theoretical weight of 11 grams, divided into 3rds, 6ths, 12ths, 24ths, 48ths, and down to 96 of siglos, actually should be described as a local weight standard. So I'm tending to call it a Cypriot weight standard. It is based to an 11-gram siglos, which corresponds systematically to the Persian siglos, because I proved that it adapts to the Persian siglos fluctuations. The lighter Cypriot standard, which is approximately 10.80 grams, aligns with the older Persian siglos of circa 5.40 grams, while the heavier standard, circa 11.20 grams, matches the post-reform siglos of circa 5.60 grams introduced under Xerxes. The kings of Idalion and the kings of Kition maintained these equivalents throughout the 5th century, and I can reply right away, why don't we call this system Persian? Because the Persian siglos weighs 5.60 grams or 5.40, but doesn't have a double, and the Cypriot system has the 11.20 grams unit and doesn't have a half. It's always divided in thirds. So, of course, they correlate because there were exchanges. Cyprus was paying a tribute to the Persians, but it is a different system. In the 4th century, the introduction of gold alongside the silver and the fluctuating gold-silver ratio, according to the different periods, can indicate a significant monetary adjustment, not only for the silver. And it's proven, because that's a table that I first proposed on my study on the gold, but I couldn't confirm the silver. Now I can confirm that in the 4th century, under Milkiathon, the silver-gold ratio remained fixed at 1 gold for 13.33 silver, also attested in the gold coinages of the kings of Salamis, Evagoras I, Nicocles. And according to this ratio, a gold hemistater equaled 5 sigloi, one-fifth of a gold stater equaled 2 sigloi, a tenth of a stater, which is very, very common, equaled 1 siglos, and the 20th equaled half. We don't have the half as a unit, as I said before, but it could be exchanged with Persian money. So there could be a complete equivalence. Timiathon, the successor of Milkiathon, in the beginning, according to the same ratio, issued coins, and we do know of halves, but changed the silver weight standard for the so-called Rhodian or Chian weight standard based on the drachm of 3.5 grams. And we know that he did that because many kings, not only from Cyprus, but also from the neighboring areas, adopted in the 4th century this system. And it's certain that some of the kings of Cyprus did the same. So he initially struck under this ratio his coinages. And then after Alexander, when we are certain that the ratio between gold and silver reduced, he continued to strike these coins, but there was a different exchange rate. The hoards analyzed in this study provide essential and crucial information on the circulation of the coinages minted by the kings of Kition and Idalion. Geographically, hoards containing Kition and Idalion coins span Cyprus, Egypt, Phoenicia, Cilicia, Pamphylia, Asia Minor, and even reach as far as Bactria. The issues of Kition are attested in hoards of the 5th and the 4th century, while the coinages of Idalion disappear from hoards that were buried around 400, which is explained because by its annexation to Kition, by its conquest by Kition, it stopped issuing coin because it's lost its autonomy and was part of the possessions of Kition. Hoard activity can be divided into 3 phases. Between 500 and 450, Cypriot coins are found in Egyptian hoards, reflecting the island's integration into the Achaemenid tribute network. Idalion coins, present only in 5th century Egyptian hoards as ingots rather than circulating currency, contrast with Kition's coinage found in hoards throughout the 5th and 4th centuries. Between 450 and 400, after the Peace of Callias, hoard evidence concentrates in Cyprus and Phoenicia, often combining coins from Lycia, Cyprus, and Phoenicia, generally dated to the 2nd quarter of the 5th century. In the 4th century, Kition's coinage dominates the hoards in Pamphylia, Cilicia, with abundant fractional denominations linked to the military and commercial activities of the Cypriot War, which took place in Cyprus in the first decades of the 4th century. And these denominations are definitely also linked to the satrapal conflicts that took place around 350 BC. Going to the numismatic iconography of the kings of Kition and Idalion, they reveal two different approaches to imagery, reflecting each dynasty's political and religious priorities. In Idalion, on the right, the Sphinx, paired with the lotus flower on the reverse, we will see some examples later on, emphasizes authority, protection, and local religious traditions, while smaller denominations also represent the head of Athena. There was a temple of Athena in Idalion. In Kition, the iconography asserts dynastic legitimacy and royal power through images such as Heracles' milk cart advancing right, bearing the threats of Heracles, the seated lion on the early issues. We will see later on some examples, and the lion attacking a deer introduced by Ozybbal and becoming the main iconographic type for all the remaining kings of Kition for the period of a century and a half almost, maybe to reinforce this royal authority. These images demonstrate a technical mastery and a strategic use of iconography to shape royal identity. Numismatic evidence, and that's very, very important, an important result from this study, indicates that two previously unknown kings, one in Idalion and one in Kition, already issued coins at the end of the 6th century. This dating, they don't have any inscription, so we don't know their names. There's absolutely no other data, so we don't know how their names were. But this early coinage, especially also in Kition, which dates nearly half a century prior to the first royal issues of the Phoenician kings, shows that the kings of Cyprus and the kings of Kition were of the earliest kings to adopt coin minting alongside other Cypriot kingdoms. This series, long debated between Kition and Amathus, that represents this seated lion on the reverse, stylistically apparels the following issues of King Valmilk the First, with the seated lion on the reverse, and I believe that they support the attribution to Kition. In contrast, the anonymous king of Idalion, you can see on the left of your screen, represents a sphinx on the obverse and an incuse square on the reverse. Example of these types were found in Egyptian hoards, as I have mentioned before, and their presence in early 5th century deposits, combined with archaic iconographic traits such as the plain or incused reverses, supports a dating to the early decades of the 6th century. Reconstructing the dynasties, and especially their chronology, remains a very complex, especially for Idalion, due to the fragmentary corpus of only 161 coins and the absence of royal names on many of these issues. No king is attested in ancient texts or inscriptions, with the exception of Stasichipros mentioned in the Idalion tablet. Even his name is only partially preserved on the coins. These coins only represents legends in Cypriot syllabic script, the local script of the island used to put into writing the Greek language. And we know from the die analysis, the hoard evidence, and the overstrikes that we can understand that the succession of these kings in a period of 50, roughly, years has to be King Sa, King Ki, King Kara, King Sa. He could be the first king who ruled again, or a second King Sa. And finally, the Etali series. It's a series composed of 3 coins that has a special legend which allowed Etali, which allowed to attribute the entire series to Idalion. The key element for the dating is this overstrike of the king key of Idalion. You can see the undertype here on a coin of King Balmilk I of Kition. And there's absolutely no doubt. You see here the lotus flower. Here's the lotus flower. I don't know. Oh, you don't see a pointer, so I think it's very difficult for me to show you. But you can see on the top the lotus flower, and on the right the Sphinx in a pink color. This is an amazing find because it shows that the king of Kition ruled at least a day before the king key of Idalion, because he had the time to issue this coin. So the fact that the coin of the king of Kition, that is the undertype, is in mint condition is very interesting, because it means that as soon as the coin was minted, it was used as a flan for the minting of the king of Ki. It allows us to know that the kings of Kition circulated in the areas of Idalion, but we cannot say more than these two kings were either successive or contemporaneous. Iconographic changes, such as the Sphinx facing right or left, and the introduction, for example, of the lotus flower on the reverse, allows the classification of the kings of Idalion. You can see in figure 2 the sphinxes and the variations of King Ki, and below you can see the different denominations of the same king who issues coins as small denominations as the 24th of Sigloi. And then in figure 4 and 5 you can see the coinages of another king of Idalion, King Kara, with the Sphinx and the legends in Cypriot syllabic script, and on the reverse the lotus flower with an astragalus on the right field. In contrast to Idalion, the dynastic chronology of Kition benefits from a substantial epigraphic record, a far richer and more diverse coinage, a higher frequency of overstrikes, and broad geographic circulation in well-dated 5th and 4th century hoards. These factors allow for a much more precise sequence. The proposed succession from the anonymous king, followed by Balmilk I, Ozibal, Balmilk II, Balrom, Milkiathon, and Pumayathon, who is the last king of Kition. The first anonymous king of Kition that we've seen before is succeeded by Balmilk I, whose coinage marks a decisive break both in typology, with the introduction of Phylacteles Milcart on the obverse, and on the reverse a lion seated with open jaws, and the Phoenician legend above, which attests of the king's name. The sigli and the thirds of the sigloi represent several variants, with a ram's head or an ankh in front of the lion's feet, and the arrangements of the legends also differentiates according to the different series. In my view, these additions of the symbols of the ankh and the ram's head should be understood in dialogue with contemporary issues minted by Evelthon's successors in Salamis, where the ankh and the ram's head are the main iconographic types on the reverse. Balmilk I was succeeded by Ozibal, whose coinage dominates the corpus with 436 surviving specimens, 380 sigloi, and 56 thirds of sigloi, making it the most abundant series I have managed to collect. Struck from 20 obverse and at least 47 reverse dies, die analysis suggests a production between 97.8 and 195 Attic talents, which is a remarkable volume in the context of 5th century Cypriot numismatics. The sigli reveal two distinct striking phases: an initial phase of intensive large-scale production, followed by a more restricted and less vigorous phase. Dating these phases is very challenging, but the high rate of overstrikes, this is 44% of the sigloi. You can see an example on the pink background. You can see how it's overstruck on an Aeginetan coins. These overstrikes come mainly from Amathus and Paphos, also from Amathus and Paphos, but mainly from Aegina and also from Athens. The Aeginetan undertypes are difficult to date precisely, yet, as we have seen before, they certainly include both sea turtles and land tortoise. The transition of the Aeginetan coinage from sea turtle to land tortoise, widely debated but securely dated in the 5th century, clearly overlaps with the reign of Osibal, as both types appear amongst his overstrikes. The substantial influx of Aeginetan coins into Cyprus in such quantities suggests a period of intensified exchanges governed by a clear mechanism of supply and demand. After 457, when Aegina faced increased tribute obligations to Athens in the frame of the Athenian arche, it may have released large quantities of silver coinage, notably the earlier sea turtle type, which had no longer legal tender, seeking to sell it for their metallic value in the Eastern markets, because they could not do that in the West. At the same time, Osibal, confronted with an immediate need for silver at the beginning of his reign, around 455, appears to have acquired a metal stock of such coins as pre-existing flans, particularly since their weight corresponded closely to that of the Cypriot sigloi. Osibal's overstrike program reflects a strategic effort to sustain regular monetary production during a period of constrained silver supply. This practice likely extended throughout his reign and continued under his successor, albeit at a significantly reduced rate. The numismatic evidence points to an accelerating minting policy in the early part of Osibal's reign, intended to meet immediate demand in coined silver and, in my view, driven by wartime needs. The more intensive initial phase was probably struck in the 460s in connection with Kition's contributions to the Persian fleet and the events surrounding Kimon's campaign in Cyprus. The second, less urgent phase may belong to a later period, although its precise objective, whether linked to renewed territorial ambitions or political context, remains only hypothetical. The exceptional scale of production during the first phase cannot be explained solely by the attempt of or the eventual conquest of Idalion, but rather points to a broader international developments and the fleet of Kition in the service of the Persians. Numismatic evidence allows the suggestion that Osibal was already on the throne when Kimon's campaign in Cyprus took place, and probably from around 455 and up until 415, as overstrikes and hoard evidence suggest. Osibal was only the first king to rule both over Kition and Idalion, but his reign also represents a turning point in Kition's history. It was marked by innovative responses to shortages of silver and by the initiation of the first large-scale coinage reflected in the full mobilization of the mint for the production of silver-struck and overstruck coins. Balmilk II, identified by the epigraphic record as son and successor of Osibal, began his reign around 415, retaining the title of Kition and Idalion in inscriptions and continuing the established practices of his father. He employs the same type for the silver issues. The numismatic evidence confirms the dynastic continuity and provides some further insight into his production, symbolism, and monetary policy. He maintained the same iconographic types, engraved his name in Phoenician on the reverse, and introduced the ankh on the obverse before Heracles Milcard on most of his series. This is a series with no ankh. His sigloi, minted also in substantial numbers, estimated in volumes around 73 and 440 Attic talents. He also minted many smaller denominations, such as 12th of sigloi, that survive in significant quantities and bear the abbreviated versions of his name. A group of almost 400 of such coins were recovered in hoards from Cyprus and Cilicia and point to a large-scale production of fractional coins across his reign, but also some of these coins don't have any legends. These coins are numerous. I could not propose a die study for these almost 400 coins that bear no legends and are in different denominations. And in my opinion, I believe that these coins were introduced by Balmilk, but were also used by successive kings, because bearing no legends but having the same types were not removed from circulation when the king changed. Following Balmilk II, the epigraphic sources mention El Balrom as a king, as the father of Milkiathon, and a Prince Balrom, whose relationship is not very clear. The coinage of this Balrom of coins, who is a third Balrom, is very rare. He didn't mint a lot of coins. I don't believe that he ruled for a big period of time, because the 4th century is well dated and well covered by the reigns of Milkiathon and Pimiathon. Milkiathon, what is very interesting though for Balrom is that he is the first king of Kition who also adds the royal title Milk preceding his name. 9 signs, letters, Phoenician letters, compose the legend of this king, and maybe the fact that he also adds the royal title on his coins has to do with this succession of the 3 Balroms and him being maybe another king and not the father of Milkiathon. So this is a very exciting coinage, although very limited in numbers. I'm very close into finishing. Milkiathon, who succeeded Balrom in 390-91 during the 10-year war against the king of Salamis, Evagoras, with the other kings of Cyprus. He is the first king to issue gold coins, and it's not a hazardous conclusion that the king of Salamis, Evagoras I, they are the 2 most important kings of this war. The king of Kition, Milkiathon, gives the port of Kition to the Persians to attack Evagoras of Salamis. It's not a hazardous thing that they both mint gold coins, 10ths of staters, actually. One of these very small gold coins equaled 1 siglos at this period, and these coins were issued during the Cypriot War to meet the increased need of minted currency for military expenditures and in response to the silver shortage of the 5th century. So the use of gold to pay mercenaries parallels the coinage of Avagoras the first, and they share a similar iconography. The king of Kition represents Heracles' milk cart without a bird on the obverse, while Evagoras represents a very Greek Heracles on his coinages. Milkiathon minted a very limited number of silver coins because at this time I have the opinion that gold, which was accessible to Cyprus during that period easier than silver, was easier for them to mint coins, and smaller denominations are now covered by bronzes. He introduces these bronze coins that we've seen before with the head of this female local goddess of I have the Greek word. I will remember, but a very similar goddess to Aphrodite, and Heracles Milcart now passes on the rivers because the goddess is more important than Heracles Milcart on these bronze local issues intended to be used for a local use. Primeiaton succeeded his father Milkiathon in 362, and he ruled Kition for nearly 50 years until 313, as confirmed by inscriptions, literary sources, and his coinage. His coinage bears the regal years on the reverse with Phoenician dates in front of the deer. You can see here the date 40 of his coinage. Primeiaton retained the control under Kition and Idalion. He acquired Tamassos for a period, as attested epigraphically and in the literature, and this acquisition, achieved through financial transaction and not through conquest, illustrate the complex mechanisms of territorial control in Cyprus during the Archaic and Classical periods. Kition maintained Tamassos roughly from the 8th to the 37th regnal year of Primeiathon, that is from 355 to 326, until Alexander the Great, Alexander III, intervened after his victory at Tyre and transferred the city to his ally Pythagoras of Salamis as part of a broader strategy to reward loyalty and reorganize the island's balance of power. In contrast to Primeiathon's well-studied and precisely dated gold coinage, a unique practice in Kition to put the dates on the coins, it confirms that Milkiathon's gold, these are half staters, weighing approximately 8 grams. They follow the same system as the Persian gold. They used gold for the high value transaction. Silver was progressively replaced by bronze for the smaller payments. And Milkiathon initiated this shift, which was later adopted by Primeiathon. The bronze coinage minted by Primeiathon presents a different iconography, that of a lion walking left on the obverse and a horse walking left on the reverse. These coins were initially attributed to the king of Salamis Evagoras II, because his silver issues represent an 8-ray star, and you can observe an 8-ray star above the horse on the rivers. But the fact that these coins were only found in the areas around Kition allowed the attribution there. Although many of these coins are found in Egypt, in Tonis, Heraklion, there are several of these coin types, and one of these coins was found in Thessaly, which is an amazing discovery, and I'm very, very thankful to my friend and colleague Mariangela Polisi, who shared with me this coin. And there, the fact that one of these coins was found in the excavation can be very well explained by the fact that Cypriot merchants or mercenaries are attested in the area of Thessaly through inscriptions. We know that they reached there. The fact that they had coins like that in there with them, their local bronze coins, and they're very similar to the iconography of the Thessalian coins, explains the fact that they were mixed with the local, and they were placed into the local circulation, being mixed as Thessalian coins. The end of Kition's autonomous coinage mirrors the fate of Idalion a century earlier. Just as the conquest of Idalion in the 5th century brought its royal minting to a halt, the execution of the king of Kition, Pimiathon, by Ptolemy in 312 marks the cessation of Kition's independent royal coinage. Thank you again. Sorry if I wasted all of this time into presenting in detail all this. I apologize for that. It was very dense, but I felt it was important to present the foundations of the study. And thank you all for listening. I'm very open to any questions you might have regarding this talk. Muito obrigada.
Tá aberto, tá aberto.
Many thanks for your interesting speech. Thank you again. And now we have a time. And I'm very interested in your book, very fascinating, because it's a part of Cyprus, very interesting. I work in the other part, but the consideration of the island is very interesting. And I have a curiosity from a non-specialist. You showed in the first part of your speech a coin with Athena, because it brings to my mind the very ancient cult of Athena in Duni. So we have a lot of archaeological items there that prove that we have in Cyprus a very early cult of Athena. Can you tell me more about this coin?
You're talking about the coin of Idalion with the head of Athena, or the overstrike of the Athenian coins?
The coin from Idalion.
Yes. So these are the coins that are dated in the period of the ruling of the Idalion dynasty. That's the first half of the 5th century. And these are the coins of the kings that represent an Athena with an Attic helmet. They are very small denominations. There is a culture as well. So we know that there was a temple of Athena.
Yes, probably we have a lot of archaeological records that prove that probably the temple in Duni is the temple of Athena around the end of the 5th and the starting of the 4th century BC. Mm-hmm. In the northern part of the island.
Yes.
Today is in the Republic, in the North Republic of the island.
Yeah. In the occupied
thank you.
Part.
questions? Online questions?
Não tem online.
Não tem online questions?
Online não tem.
Okay. If we have no question, we thank you again, and for sure we meet soon in Athens, and we can talk
Of course.
in presence.
With great pleasure. If there are any questions at the second stage, don't hesitate to contact me. I will be more than happy.
You have your email, and it was a pleasure, and we hope that in the future you can come here to visit us for a short course.
That would be a great pleasure. There's a lot of work to be done on Cypriot numismatics, and it would be great to have people interested and students interested in.
You know that we are a university museum of the University of São Paulo, and we have items from Cyprus also, not coins,
yes, because I remember
we have potteries and other things from Cyprus.
That's great. That's exciting. I think that we are just, two doors from each other, but we're at the other end of the world working so hard.
Okay, so happy Easter, because happy Easter in Greece, and thank you again. We will see soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for going by. Bye.